Series 2 of the unofficial tour series, presented by Road to Glory on the RGT platform. Today we're in Northern England and we are going to be doing laps of the Durham circuit. This featured in Series 1 and was a pretty brutal course. It's got a nice quick downhill, but all things that go downhill must come up again to get back to the start line, and it's a punchy 20% section. So we're on to race 5. Let's just recap then. We had 3 races up in Scotland. We started off in Edinburgh, then we went to Motherwell, then on to Aberdeen, which was our little 3-race series in Scotland. Then we came down to Birkenhead, and now we've jumped across to Durham. Next race on Thursday evening we'll be down in my university town of Bath, and then we'll be right down to the south coast, down to the city of Portsmouth, the maritime city, naval city, and that is a week on Thursday, the 29th of April. So it's another 7-race series. Riders' times and overall points to class on their best 5. So let's recap the leaderboard then. So James Melville there, 3 out of 3 wins for him, currently top of the pile. He's doing very well in this series. He was the Series 1 winner as well. Chris McDonald there in 2nd place. He's had a 2nd place in round 1 and then a 3rd place in round 2 and round 3. Oh no, sorry, 2 4th places. And then myself there, currently in 3rd place with a 3rd place and 2nd place. Steve Dring in 4th and Alistair McAlpine in 5th. So we'll see who turns up today. Always a little bit of a lottery. See if Melville's going to be going for 4 out of 4. And there we are, there's the points for the B class. Rick Barbera there, 4 podiums from the 4 races that he's attended so far. He's had 2 wins and 2 2nd places. Matthias Goossens though, 2nd place. He's been pretty consistent, a couple of 3rd places, a couple of 4th places. But Paul Dring, he missed that first race. He's had a 1st, a 2nd and a 3rd. I was going to say he's on a slight downwards trajectory, but 3 podiums out of 3, that's not much of a downwards trend, is it? Maybe he can reverse that today. And then Gabor Nagy in 4th, Rob Miller in 5th, finished 5 points ahead of Julian Fussell in 6th, who's ahead of his clubmate Simon Miller. Then 8th place Simon Russell, our event organiser. Alex Plager in 8th with 60 points. 1 win there out of 1. And Joran Goossens currently rounding out the top 10 then. So we are a couple minutes away from the start. So let's just take a little look at today's course. So it's a 1.56 kilometre lap. 25 laps as always, which means we're doing 34.2 kilometres. 550 metres of climbing, and you can see there it says South Street 9% max, but having raced it in Series 1 I can tell you that's more like 20%. Luckily you don't lose too much speed in that corner, so you can carry it down that downhill, come around the bend, and then you've got to attack that uphill hard. And we did see a lot of attacks there in Series 1. It gets really strung out. If you're a bit slower up that steep bit, then you're having to push up to that final corner to try and make sure you're still in touch, still got contact with the pack as you approach the start-finish line before starting the lap again. So it does start off fairly flat. That 3rd corner, that's the danger zone. So there we go, Class A on the left, which is for riders with an FTP of 3.8 watts per kilo or higher, and Class B on the right. And there's a little bit of play within those. So if the Class B rider regularly goes anything above 4, then they will be disqualified. But there is a bit of leeway because some of these races are under an hour. So right, 5 seconds then. Let's get ready to race. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we'll go. Oh, look at that. McAlpine and Melville, the 2 Scottish riders in the Class A race. Boom, straight off the line. They're not messing around. Barube looks like he's got back on okay. But here's the Portuguese rider, Carino. He's already having to work hard, 20 metres off the back there. It looks like he's going to make contact. And then M. Nally, unfortunately, looks like he's had a bit of a technical at the start there. Hasn't got going. There we are in the B class then. We'll be running these 2 races side by side, jumping between the 2. Jay Pearson, French rider, with the early attack. Just trying to stretch it out, but looks like we've still got a good 19 riders in that front group then. That's going to be a good race as Barube goes on the early attack in the A-class race then. There's that downhill into the dip. It says 6% on that sign, but as you see here, top right hand corner, you can see that gradient, 13%. You really need to attack it. Carino got back on early. See there how it gets stretched out. And already McAlpine's opened that gap back up to 40 metres. So that looked like Pearson, our early break rider, has slightly come off the back of that Class B as they complete their first lap. That bigger bunch is meaning they're travelling substantially quicker than our A class at the moment. So the A class just coming up to the start line now, and there's already a 220 metre lead for the Class B race, and that's just down to the pack dynamics, bigger numbers. That's going to mean that they can rotate on the front more often, need to take shorter turns. They can sit in and rest in that bunch. So it looks like Carino finding the pace a bit tough going in the Class A already. Barube, McAlpine and Melville. Looks like we're going to have a nice battle between those 3. In Series 1, Melville and another rider managed to get away early. They put in a strong attack. In the end, Melville finished second. Igor Kops, the Slovakian rider, was the rider that won that race. But we can see here McAlpine and Melville just sitting in, letting Barube do a bit of the early work. Barube easing off there as they come down. And then in Class B, they're already up the other side of that climb. Little bit of a split. Guston's up the front. Barbera, our series leader, leading the chase. And we've got Aid, Cheetahs, Austin, and Dring. We mentioned him at the start of the show. 3 podiums out of 3. He's looking to be in a good position, helping with this chase. Ogilvy in that group, the team leader of OTR e-racing. Gabor Nagy up there as well. And Steve Dring, Paul's brother, also getting in on this Class B action there. So 11 or 12 riders. Looks like she could be up to 15 coming back together there then. This really is an attritional race. you're hanging on every lap. You tend to see that there's a pattern of the stronger riders. They'll slightly get away on that climb. The lighter riders pushing up that steeper part. Then the powerhouses will claw it back on the way up on the shallower bit to the start-finish line. Corino here in Class A then. Not getting gapped too much, actually slightly pulling it back to that front group of 3 then. We've just brought it back under 70 metres and it's slowly dropping. Front group aren't really pushing away. See on the left hand side there, Corino 4th place, he's at 3.6 watts per kilo. He's chasing down the rider ahead, 2.2, 2.4, though McAlpine's now listed it 3.5, and that's opening the gap back up as the other 2 respond. That's slightly unfortunate for Corino. These front 3, they might have thought they'd have the measure of Corino and think, well, we can just let him join and share some of the workload, get to the finish line a little bit quicker and maybe try and drop him again later, but looks like they're not going to sit up and let him join at this point. Here we see Cauldring then crossing the line. That's 3 laps down within the B class race. Still looking like so 10 of them then in that front group. Looks like Miller in 11th, Ogilvy just slightly dropped off the back of this group then. It might be a chance for them just to close back up, only 50 metres or so. You do find that this course means that you do ease up quite a bit on that starting part of the course. That does give chasers a bit of a chance to come back, but it does mean they're burning matches to try and get back on, and then you've got to go up that hill again, and it's a bit of a downward spiral. So it looks like this front 3 in Class A then have now put Corino to the sword. He's now fallen a further 100 metres back on that lap. But he's still cruising around nicely at 3.9 watts per kilo. So he's still putting in a good effort, he's not eased up. And in Class B, here we are, look at them there, all spread out on the road up that 13% section. A couple of riders just off the front then. Other riders clinging on for dear life on the back there, trying to get some draft saving. It's strung out there, 24 metres covering that front 10. If you've got the legs and you're over the top first, you can just try and string it out and put those at the back in a little bit of difficulty. That's a worthwhile tactic. But no one dropped that time round then. That group of 10 sticking together. It looks like Miller heading up the following group with Ogilvy. They're in a little battle of their own. And then there's 3 riders, another 350 metres back behind them. We see A. Roo, P. Poodle, Espo, little German trio here. Then Perez in 16th, Bellio in 17th. They've just lapped Garcia there, who's currently in 21st. And in between we've got Rubrook, Belgian rider, Rouazri, French rider, and Gouzajan, Slovakian rider. So we'll see if any of those manage to team up. They all seem a little bit spread out at the moment, each working on their own. That front group hit that climb again. See the Dring brothers there, working together in the yellow and blue Vive la France kit. You see how they got a bit of a slingshot to the front, but then Chidos and Barbera coming through. If you time it right, you can get a good slingshot effect on that hill. Gives you a little bit of a boost up the steepest bit. All about timing. As you come down, you want to be at the back of the pack, get that draft, and then as you hit the bottom, come through to the front, carrying that speed into that climb. You see a lot of Rick Barbera on the front, but he does deliver. You might say that he spends too much time there, but it seems to pay dividends. He's always been first or second from the first 4 races, playing to his strengths, just putting the others to the sword a little bit, making them work hard. Here we see McAlpine and Malville making a bit of a move. Rube working hard just to try and keep in contact, but he does manage to push back across and straight away drops down to 2.5 watts per kilo. The 2 Scottish riders respond likewise. The slightly flatter part of the course, this is where you can just ease up, catch your breath, get ready for that next assault on the hill. Trying to recover every time, do what you can. Looks like Herman's then just slightly getting gapped off the back then. Looks like the elastic has snapped. He's going to have to work hard to get back on here. He's struggling just a little bit. Watts per kilo is slightly higher than those ahead of him, so if he digs deep, you can see the gap's just closing slowly but surely. Down to 15 metres. So he'll get back on, but how much is this costing him? Got a heart rate on, but looks like he's having some difficulties. I'd be surprised if his heart rate was dropping that quickly when he was putting out that effort to get back on, but we've made the junction, got back across. So once again, these 2 Scottish riders, Malville and McAlpine, opening up a gap on Barube on that drag up to the start-finish line. Last lap, Barube managed to get back on board, but this time McAlpine and Malville were keeping it high, keeping that power on. Barube is doing what he can to get back across. This is turning into a little bit of a slugfest this lap. Who's going to crack first? Malville on the front, 5.2 watts per kilo. McAlpine comes through now. They're going to hit the downhill in a second, that's going to open that gap up. Pushing 400 watts almost there. So McAlpine, here we are on the downhill, then they ease up a little bit. Barube ups the power, trying to use that gradient just to give him that extra boost. Try and close that gap. It looks like he's done it there. And there we go, he gets that draft saving, sails on through. Pushing over 600 watts there, McAlpine coming through as well. How much did that last lap cost for Rube? Looks like he's okay. Hanging on to those front three and he's going to sail on through. He's saying, right, you want to play games? Now you can play to my game, now I'm in front. So it doesn't look like Herman's got dropped on that subsequent lap. He was able to recover, stay with that group of 10 as they took on that hill again. So who else have we got in this group then? No Fussell, no Simon Russell, no Simon Miller. So we could see a bit of a swapping around on that leaderboard for the series this evening. Nagy, Barbero, Gussens, they're all up in the top 5 with Peter Dring, or Paul Dring, sorry. Maybe we'll see Steve Dring starting to move up today as well. As all the riders are into the red numbers, you can see the bars under their names there. They all get into the threshold zone to push themselves up over that bump. Cheetah's here then, in a little gap there, just testing their legs maybe, thinking, right, what have I got towards the finish? Will I be able to push on? It is a challenging finish, it's not just up the hill and there's the finish line, it's up the hill and then 300, 400 metres or so. Not just a simple case of giving it everything on the hill, you've got to hold something back for that drag up to the start finish line. So it looks like there's been a little bit of a truce in the Class A race. For Rube, McAlpine and Malville then. They said we've had enough for a minute, let's just work together. Just cruise around. And Corino is still there in 4th place. He's a kilometre back, but he's still riding, that's good to see. Not giving up on this. So back in the A class, sorry, the B class. Once again, that hill causing it to spread out. Isator looks like possibly third of the way into the race. That's going to be point where he snaps 40 metres off the back. There's Hermans again. He's 25 metres off the back again. Is he going to be able to get back across after some previous heroics? Or are we going to see this front group of 8 now pulling away? That slow whittling down, the attrition that we see is happening. So now we're up to Heremans and Isator. Are they going to work together? If they work together, they could still finish top 10. If they use up too much, they could find themselves slipping back. Miller and Ogilvy could find themselves catching them. Let's take a look at these power numbers then as they come up the climb in the Class B race. We saw that A class, they were up over 600 watts. There we go, 599. Not quite topping out over 600. So there we go, 700 here at the front for Barbera. Putting out some serious power there. Put himself up that climb. But he's also eased off. You see the on the left hand side, their numbers go red when they're putting out more than 120% of their FTP. You can see when they're really pushing, but Barbera is the first number to drop back down to white there. Just feeling comfortable in that pack, not going too hard for too long, doing what you can to moderate that power output and that effort, making sure he's not burning all his matches too soon. Oh, an attack by Malville. They crossed the start-finish line there. He goes on the attack. He is a dogged cyclist, Melville. He likes to attack. He likes to put people under pressure. We can see here, this looks like good tactics. McAlpine just sitting in behind Berube, letting Berube do all the work. McAlpine is going to fit in and just let Malville go away, and then put Berube to the sword when the time is right. Yeah, Malville was either going to stay away, or Berube is going to expend a lot of energy catching up and dragging McAlpine with him. Although McAlpine looks like he's slightly being dropped. No, he's through. So Malville then coming into the base of the climb with a 25-metre advantage. And we've seen that he has been the quicker of these three riders up that hill. 11 watts per kilo there, 12 watts per kilo. But McAlpine's come on through. Using that climb. We've seen a few times that they've got the better of Berube on that climb. (20-metre advantage. Berube still at 6 and 7 watts per kilo. Working hard to bring it back. Malville and McAlpine slightly eased off a bit. Are they going to let Berube catch and then attack? Is it a bit of a double bluff? Yes, there it is. there's the attack from Melville. He goes again. I don't know if him and McAlpine are working together or not. They're both Scottish riders. They've both got the GCN kit on. McAlpine sitting in on Berube, letting him do the work again. Oh, McAlpine comes through. This time Melville was up to a 30-metre gap. Keeping his numbers high, up above 5. So 50 metres this time he's got as they hit the base of the dip, past the red warning triangle. Is he going to be able to make it stick this time? Alpine not quite pushing to close the gap this time. Last time he jumped across and Berube came with him. Looks like this time they're just sitting back a little bit. Going to let Berube pull them up. Even at 2.5–3% gradient, you're going to get a bit of a draft saving. Melville keeping that power on, keeping that lead up at 25 metres. You might have looked at the start of this race and thought, well, there's only 3 of them, 4 of them with Perino. How exciting is it going to be? But it really does mean that you get this slugfest, this tactical assault on each other. It really does make for some interesting racing. But we've ignored the Class B for a little while, so let's check in there, see how we're getting on. Looks like that front 8 then is still together. We've not had anyone else drop off in the last few laps. These guys are coming up to halfway then. As they come round and down the dip. That'll be pretty much the halfway point of the race. So we'll be looking at around about the second half, usually a little bit slower, so maybe 56 minutes for this race. These guys working well together to stretch out that gap. And we can see there on the leaderboard, Ogilvy and Miller are only 150 metres behind Harriman, so they're pushing to get into a top 10 position here. A few laps ago that didn't look possible. They were 500 or 600 metres off the back of the top 10. So if Harriman comes across, that'll be 3 of them, and then maybe they'll have a chance to close down Isator. But opportunities, that's why you don't give up. Keep riding hard. Always a chance to come back and claim some higher positions if you don't quite know how the rest of the field are going to go. Maybe Harriman's just went a little bit too deep, trying to maintain contact early on. Here we see Melville then, still pushing on. He's got a 70-metre gap then. He comes through. He's also just passing halfway, and it looks like that gap between the virtual gap is closed right up. I would say that Melville at this point is pretty much on level pegging with the leaders of the Class A race, the Class B race, even though in a slightly bigger bunch. Melville, you can see him on the left, 37 kilometres per hour. Whereas on the right hand side, that rider just getting dropped, Shidos. Oh, he's jumped up to 36, but he was at 32 just now, kilometres per hour. So falling back a little bit. There we go. Look, 34 for these guys in the front pack of 8. Melville, pretty much bang on the same point on the course, 40 kilometres per hour. He's really pushing on here. Rube still towing McAlpine. Tactical ride by McAlpine, I think this is. I don't think this is McAlpine suffering. I think that's just him not wanting to help out Rube in closing the gap to his teammate. Then as I say that, McAlpine puts in a huge effort there. 11 watts per kilo to Rube's 8. He's decided the gap is big enough to Melville that now's the time for him to make that junction. Try and drop Rube and push across to his teammate who's gone up the road. Be interesting to see if Melville eases up at all to let McAlpine bridge. Only 20 metres back, McAlpine, and then he's put 50 metres into Rube. Here we go then, he's going to make the bridge. So 2 riders back up front. Smart money is going to be on those 2 now. And back in the Class B race. Looks like Cheetahs then has dropped out of that group, that lead group. He's fallen victim to the pace. So you can see Miller and Ogilvy then now 900 metres back from this group, but they've closed 100 metres. They're not going to close it all back. But what that's telling me is they're still working hard, and this front group maybe just eased up a little bit. Also the way we can see that they are now falling behind the Class A leaders in the virtual head-to-head. They were several hundred metres ahead. But Isator as well now also falling back into the clutches of Miller and Ogilvy. So quite possibly that changing in the distance was just down to the positions on the course. Isator's got a couple of lap riders there for company, and that's going to be helping him out. He's 280 metres ahead of Miller and Ogilvy, and they've gone straight through Harriman's. So these 2 now are, one of them will get a top 10 if they carry on riding like this. Could be enough to get them some points on the board. So Velio is a lap down on Harriman's. Like he might not slide too much further down the leaderboard then. It looks like the Rube is finally cracked. He was holding 50 metres back for a while there. It's now slipped to over 100 metres back. It'll be interesting to see what happens between McAlpine and Melville. Melville has got 3 wins out of 3 so far. And a good battle against him in the race 2. Smart money would be on McAlpine to probably let Melville go. As they come round to lap Carino for the 2nd time today. So 35 minutes in, still around 20 minutes of racing to go. Steep ring just slightly off the back. 10 metres off the back there in the Class B race. Just trying to grab the wheel of his brother Paul. Nothing to be too alarmed with at the moment as they come across the start-finish line. They're now virtually 200 metres behind Class A race, 9 laps to go. Alpine and Malville working nicely together. Looked like they were taking turns there on the front. There's Baru, 200 metres back. Still a lot of rotation on the front of the Class B race. There's 7 riders. Haven't seen Barbera on the front quite so much recently. Gussen's there. Be interesting to see just how it goes in the final few laps, final few times up that hill. That will be the make or break point. As the field size dwindles, it does mean that accordion effect becomes less on the hill, which can be a benefit. You don't fall quite so far back from the leader. But it also does mean if you're struggling, there's fewer wheels for you to catch hold of. Might not be that easy to stick with that group. So 6 across. They come down. No one quite getting the draft slingshot there. So Austin and Aid there, powering through. Aid was the one at the back. He's used that slingshot to get him halfway up the pack. They've eased off. As soon as they're up that steep bit, onto the 2% bit there, they're now easing off, just conserving that energy. I think they know at the moment, these 7 riders kind of got the matching of each other. No point burning matches off the front at this stage when you know the other riders are just going to come back at you. Might be better to try and catch them off guard on the flatter section. Maybe out of a corner. Maybe try and put in a little effort just before the downhill. Catch someone by surprise. Maybe they get gapped. So both these races, just over 10 kilometres now of racing remaining. Each lap is around about 1.36 kilometres long. The medium length courses. Edinburgh was up at over 1.55 kilometres. Aberdeen was only just over a kilometre. It's always 25 laps, but the laps can slightly vary in how long it is, which affects the outcome or the length of the race. So that you can see there, those Class B riders coming past the sign at the bottom of the dip. They're up at 55 to 60 kilometres an hour there. They're in that slightly bigger pack, whereas Malville and McAlpine were closer to 45 kilometres an hour, so 10 kilometres less. Less speed means they're going to have to work harder up that hill. Peru still going strong then, 240 metres back. He's done well to limit the distance he's fallen back there. He was in the Class B race, now he'd still be ahead of this pack. Still over 100 metres of climbing for the two races then. 15 minutes or so of racing to go. So, McAlpine and Melville still cruising along together then. It looks like we're starting to see a bit more separation, are we, in the Class B race? Austin, Barbera and Aid on the front. Now the others are just coming back. Down to 8 kilometres, 5 miles in old money. You could start to see a bit of movement in that Class B race now, where I was thinking, actually, the laps are disappearing. I won't have to hold it for too long if I make a move now. We shall see. So 5 laps after this one then, left to go. And the Class A race will finish ahead of Class B. I'm looking forward to the finish of the Class B race. We've got 7 riders here, some strong riders. With that hill, I'm not sure how to call it really. So it's anyone's game, I reckon, in the B class. Leaves it open. See there how Austin, he's getting the jump on the climb. Coming to the front using that slingshot. The others are able to respond and come through. They've got the raw power, so as it starts to level off, they're able to pick it up. I thought the lighter riders have to go early, make the most of that steepest bit where the heavier riders will be suffering. You might see that their power is a bit more peaky. Push hard. And just try and maintain it, whereas the heavier riders might be a bit more of a consistent power. We shall see. I'm intrigued to see if McAlpine will get the better of Melville during the Motherwell race. Actually, sorry, the Aberdeen race, and I was racing against those two. McAlpine went early. We managed to close him, and then I jumped. But Melville managed to jump with me, and he just beat me on the line. He is very good at putting in repeated hard efforts and still being able to go again and again. He's definitely got a deep well of reserves. Once again, we see Austin making a move on the front. Oh no, we see Barbera. Oh, I thought he was going to go steaming past then. Actually, I think they were just going past the lap rider. There's a lap rider just ahead of them. Someone's going to get a little bit of a draft saving off. And there we see Aid and Austin once again. Pushing through, and Goosen's there as well. Getting that slingshot. Keeping the power on, up over 8 watts per kilo, trying to stretch it out then. Ring brothers here, slightly getting gapped with Nagy. A little bit of traffic. I look like Ogilvy, Isseltor and Miller. It's all coming in together now. 4 laps. There's a bit of a gap. But now it comes back. These front riders, they made the gap, but then they eased off a little bit. Maybe just waiting, thinking they've got another chance. Not wanting to go too early. Just testing those legs, thinking, yep, when the time comes, we can drop them. We don't have to go hard too early. We've still got 5k to go. Back together. There's Ogilvy in the OTR jersey there. So looks like Ogilvy and Isseltor come back together. They've dropped Miller. Don't think they're going to catch Chadis, who's sort of in no man's land halfway around the lap between this lead group of 7 and Ogilvy and Chadis. There's that group's 1,000 numbers, it might just give them a little bit of a speed boost. Look like Miller and Harriman's going to miss out on that top 10. Not quite sure what happened to Miller to see him drop away from Ogilvy. They were riding well together. So they're going to be rounding out the top 10, although they are a lap down at the moment. Slightly calmer ascent at that time of the hill. South Street, I think it is. Goosen's chomping at the bit there. Saying, watch me guys. Just coming to the front, but then easing off. 3 laps to go. They're all just playing a little bit of chicken at the minute, fainting some efforts, and falling back into the group. But we see Melville go early. He's the sort of rider that could drop McAlpine with 2 laps to go, solo away to the finish. Or are they going to be teammates? They've got the same bike, the same kit, the same nationality. Or they're just going to roll around together to the finish. But saying that, Baru, I know it's just the hill, but he's closed that gap there to 120 metres. That will slightly stretch as the other two get onto the flattest road at the top. But he's never been more than 300 metres away. He's done well to maintain that gap. It's easy once that gap forms for your head to drop. You just completely ease off that power. No, that he's, even though he's now on the flat a bit as they come around to that start finish line, he has closed that gap somewhat. 200 metres. That was up towards 300 metres a few laps ago. So that's a good effort by Garub. So he begins the penultimate lap. So that pattern's remaining. Aiden Austin towards the front of the group up the climb. Ring Brothers slightly towards the back. Are they just keeping their powder dry? Saving those legs for one big final effort. They come round. Lapping a few more riders into the last few minutes of the race then. Ogilvy puts in an attack here. Is he trying to drop Isator? He's just trying to secure 9th place here. You could see people battling for every position. This is a ranked race, so it's in his interest to finish above Isator. He's stretching his legs for the last couple of times, knowing that we're not far from the finish. As Melville and McAlpine come round to take the bow then, signify the last lap beginning. Didn't have the sound effect on. I'll have to speak to the broadcast team, get a bell ringing sound effect for when they cross the start finish line. Here's Barub. He's lost 10 metres or so on that last lap. Very good ride from him. When you're on your own up against two teammates, it's always going to be hard. So Gustons, he's coming up the hill on the penultimate time. Is this his attack? Is he all in? Aid is coming across. We've got a 25 metre gap, it's slightly growing. Chasing group of 5 behind them. Austin, Nagy, Barbera, the Ring Brothers. Ogilvy and Isator in there still as well. Comes back together. Gustons and Aid get caught. Melville and McAlpine then, 350 metres to go. There's McAlpine. Putting in that little effort. Oh, he's pulling away from Melville here. This is a strong finish by McAlpine. Comes around that final corner, 100 metres to go. It's McAlpine, he's going to take the win. Melville couldn't quite make it 4 out of 4. Let's cut across the Class B then, they can't be far off now. Here we go, they come round that downhill for the final time. Past the red warning triangle, 350 meters to go. Gussen's on the front. Oh, and he's opening a gap. Austin and Aid, Barbera in behind. Nagy and the Dream Brothers getting dropped just behind them. Aid almost getting across. They come around that final corner, it's 100. Oh, Aid has jumped. Gussen's is caught. Barbera closing down on Aid. No, but Aid is going to take it. Barbera second. Gussen's holds on for third. Austin's fourth. Steve Dring takes fifth. And looks like Nagy just picked Dring on the line to take sixth for Nagy and seventh for Paul Dring. So Paul Dring, we said at the start of the show, he's had 3 podiums. Finishing seventh today. Good result for Gussen's on third. Barbera taking second. It was Aid with the win. So there's the top 3 from the Class A results. Our results being supplied by RGTDB.com. What was only 3 riders, but 4 riders I must say actually. Perino still out there, good for him. That was an intriguing race. Alpine and Malville worked well together to drop the Rube about 25 kilometres into the race, but Rube never surrendered. And in the end, he was only 20 seconds behind McAlpine, 15 seconds behind Malville. So McAlpine beating Malville, pushing him down into second place for the first time in this series. And I'm sure that will extend his lead at the top of the leaderboard. And there we go then, Mike Aid taking it ahead of Rick Barbera. Matthias Gussen's caught in the last 100 metres. He'll take third in another podium. Peter Austin there, just getting ahead of Steve Dring. And those two finished a couple of seconds ahead of Gabor Nagy, who just overtook Paul Dring in the last 10 metres or so. Well, fairly consistent in the watts per kilo there, 2.97 up to 3.38. Not much of a range. So we'll see. Cheetahs will finish 8th, I imagine. And then it'll be between James Ogilvie and Isator for 9th and 10th. Miller will come across in 11th. And Harriman's, the Belgian rider, will take 12th. There we go, Miguel Chadas there. 2 minutes 15 down, 1 lap down. So full results are available on RGTDB.com. All of the Tour Series results are on there. Next race coming from Bath on Thursday, 6 PM UK time. Another 25 lap race, quite a technical circuit, a couple of sharp bends, but fairly flat. And then the final race a week on Thursday from Portsmouth, the 29th of April. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for joining me in the chat. Hope you enjoyed that intriguing racing this evening. That was the unofficial Tour Series, presented by Road to Glory on RGT. I've been Mike Lister, and you've been watching this on ZMS. Catch you all next time.